I started something yesterday, and I was going to continue today, but I just felt I should jump and do something else. I will do what I started yesterday at the businessmen's luncheon. I will continue it at the businessmen's luncheon. Because the second part of the message is a little bit loaded, and I thought I needed people who were directly in business to be able to use what I was going to say. So if you want the second part, you better be at the luncheon. Amen. But today I'm going to talk about excellence. Excellence. And that we need to get into. And my general theme is going beyond your limitations, and the subtitle is excellence. Many times God invests great treasure in us, but we devalue the treasure because of the low application we invest into that treasure. If God gives you gold, you have to have the capacity to refine it. Otherwise, it's just a piece of cheap metal. If God gives you diamond, you have to have the capacity to refine and to cut it well. Otherwise, it's another piece of stone. And really, treasure is not the raw material you receive. Treasure is a skill, is developed through the skill application that you invest into what God has given to you. In other words, God can give you a gift of prophecy. The excellence of that gift is not the gift itself, it's what you do with the gift and what you invest into the gift. You can prophesy at a very low level or prophesy at a high level. You can decide to prophesy to people about their individual lives or to speak prophetically into nations. And much as it's good for people to hear individual prophecy, the prophets whose works were recorded in the Bible were not personal prophets. They spoke to larger issues, bigger issues, but it was the same gift of prophecy. It is what you invest into that gift. And you train yourself to be able to apply your gift to a higher level. And I always give the example. I do workshops for corporate organizations, and I also do seminars for churches. I use almost about the same gift, but I apply them at different levels. And it's the application I give to my gift of teaching that determines whether my gift will be locked to only one sector of life or it can have application in other sectors of life. Whatever God gives you, He doesn't restrict you on how far you can use it. If you follow the story of the guys who received the talents, the master did not tell them what to do with the gifts or the talents. They had to choose to trade with them. It was their choice, not a dictation for them from the master. God is not going to dictate to you what to do with what He's given to you. You have to choose what to do with what God has given to you. So we're going to talk about excellence today in terms of going beyond your limitations. So let's start first with definitions, as I normally do. What's a limitation? And most of the time, I try to define what I'm saying so that you don't misunderstand what I'm trying to communicate by the Spirit of God. What is a limitation? First, a limitation is a boundary. It's a boundary. A boundary is used to demarcate the limits of space you can operate in. Secondly, a limitation is a restriction. Don't is a limitation. It's a restriction. Third, a limitation is a final point. I summarize it this way. A limitation is as far as something can go. If somebody tells you, this is how far you can go, this is as far as you can go, this is the best you can do, they are defining a limitation for you. And in life, there are limitations. There are basically two kinds of limitations. The first one is what I call protective limitations. Limitations set to protect you from destruction. They are protective. Example is speed limits, moral and ethical limits, legal limits. These are limitations. So when I talk about going beyond your limitations, I'm not saying go and break the speed limit. It's a limitation, but it's protective limitation. There are legal limits. If you go and do the wrong thing, you get jailed. There are ethical limits. God sets limitations for us. Thou shalt not steal. It's a limitation. You can't by faith go beyond that limitation. If you do that by faith, you will end up in jail. One man, one wife, it's a limitation. You can't by faith marry two people. It's a protective limitation. It's set to protect you from destruction, to keep you from destroying your own life. Then there is a second kind of limitation. Limitations set to prevent you from achievement. I call them preventive limitations. For example, gender limitations, racial and ethnic limitations, academic limitations. If you're a woman, you grow into a male-dominated society which has already set the rules as to who can do what and who cannot do what. And since the men have been making the rules for all these years, guess what? They skewed it to their advantage. And they told the women, you can't do that, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. And they enforce those limitations to keep you from achievement. Racial limitations. I don't know how other races deal with it, but if you are black, you have to deal with this one. You are born into racial limitations. Your race struggles for identity and for self-expression. Even when you have it, you are told you don't have it. You have to work extra hard to live a normal life. You have to go 2 miles to cover 1 mile. You have to work so much to do what is normal for everybody. You have to work hard to prove yourself all the time. It's racial limitations. Black people can do that. Black people can do that. Sometimes it's not what people tell black people they can't do. It's what black people tell themselves they can't do. So much so that when black people start to live a life of excellence, other black people tell them they are now behaving like white people. As if being white is an improvement on black.